Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel, and that is the R in the RK Stumbling Bear. I am a reader and a writer. And today I'm here to talk about my September wrap-up. September was an incredible month for me. I finished 18 stories, or 18 books. So far this year, that has been my best reading month. Probably helped that I had a 2-week vacation in there. Whereas my lowest reading month was March with 3 books, but I was still a student and there was a lot of group projects going on. And I'm just gonna go through them in the order that I read them. First, I did participate in Space Opera September and the Magical Readathon. I know I did separate TBR videos for those. I am just gonna do my wrap-up all together, because I've read other books that don't qualify for either. And so if I read them for a readathon or for a book club, I will show you down below. So the first book I finished in the month of September was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is his newest book that came out this year, and I have done a review of it with non-spoilers and spoilers, and I shall link that up in the cards. I would say that this is a near future space opera first contact story. But in a nutshell, this book follows Ryland Grace, who wakes up with amnesia on a spaceship and slowly gets his memory back to learn that the Earth's sun has been affected by an entity called astrophage. They've noticed that another system hasn't had that, any issues, so they're going to investigate why. He wakes up, has amnesia, and his other 2 crewmates are dead. So he's slowly starting to remember how he got onto the spaceship, as he is trying to then fulfill the mission of why does this other system that I've arrived in not have a problem with astrophage? And he soon meets somebody else who's also investigating that, so then it becomes a contact story. And it was a lot of fun. Andy Weir really knows how to weave the science in with the narrative by choosing to have Ryland Grace as a science teacher who's used to teaching children. You get a more real you get a clearer explanation of how the science works. One of my few nitpicks on this book is I feel like the chapters went really long, and there was a lot of going backwards and forwards in time, and it didn't quite work for me. One of the big reveals with the amnesia at the end just didn't ring true to me, but I liked everything else about the story. And like most people who've read it, I enjoyed Rocky. I enjoyed the first contact elements, and how do you really learn to communicate with somebody who has no basis of the same sort of language you do. And I really like the concept that Rocky's speaking would be more musical to Ryland's ear. So I gave this book 4 stars. I need to preface the next 7 books a little bit. The first weekend in September, I was in a mood, and I needed some Regency romance in my life, and so I watched the first season of Bridgerton. When it first came out, I was like, oh, that looks stupid, I don't want to. But for some reason, it was just something that appealed to me that weekend, and I binge watched the first season in 2 days. I do like to binge watch and binge read, as you will soon see. I know from listening to other booktubers that this is also a book series, and I decided to start reading. But, I've already consumed the first season, so I didn't want to read the first book because I already know the gist of the plot, so I started with book 2. That was The Viscount Who Loved Me, and that was Anthony's story. He's the elder brother. So the synopsis for the series is there are 8 children. Their parents were a love match. Their parents were very involved in their lives. They had a great relationship with them. And the parents decided to name the children alphabetically, so it's A through H. The first book and the first season follows Daphne, who is child number 4, but the first girl. So then The Viscount Who Loved Me follows Anthony, or Antony, as I guess the British say. And he is the eldest and the heir. He is the Viscount. And the first season of Bridgerton has pretty much shown us he is a rake. He just is out for his own pleasure. But at the same time, he wants to take care of his family, but he doesn't want to actually get married himself. And in this book, we find out that he has this idea that there's no way he can find love. His parents were just super lucky. He envies what they have, but not going to happen to him. So he sets his sights on he sets his sights on courting and marrying the next season's like most beautiful woman. And her sister ain't having any of that. She's just like, nope, you're a rake. I know your reputation. You're not good enough for my sister. Her sister, Edwina, she has already announced to basically the whole ton that in order to win her good graces, you have to pass, her older sister Kate's good graces. Kate gets to basically, you have to get Kate's permission. And so Anthony realizes that he has to go through Kate in order to get Edwina. And so they're kind of going back and forth, and he's trying to be like, oh, come on, I'm really a nice guy. And she's just like, yeah, I know the reputation, not happening. Violet Bridgerton, Anthony's mother, decides to do a house party, invites Kate, Edwina, and their mother, Mary, to that party. And you get a little more of the explanation of how Edmund Bridgerton has died. He was already dead in the first book when Anthony was 18, and so all the children under him were younger. He was stung by a bee and had an anaphylactic reaction and died. So Anthony is deathly afraid of bees and of anybody else getting stung. And while him and Kate are arguing in the garden, a bee comes around and he's trying to get her to leave. And she's like, whatever, it's just a bee. And he's like, no, let's leave. And they're fighting, agitates the bee, and the bee stings her. And he then decides he must save her, and so tries to suck the venom out. Pulls the stinger out, and then tries to suck the venom out to save her, and gets caught by his mother, her mother, and another woman. So now they have to get married. And this is where the series by Julia Quinn is a lot of fun, is because it's not just like, oh, the romance of them getting up to the point where they get married. You get to see after the marriage too. And that is a lot of fun because it's working things out. The relationship doesn't stop once marriage happens. It continues to go. And it was a nice blend to see how Anthony and Kate work together. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say who the main couple is because it's a romance novel. Yeah, they're going to get together. And I gave this 4 stars. And then I read An Offer from a Gentleman, which is Benedict's story. And this is kind of set up on the whole Cinderella chassis, with Sophie sneaking out to a ball where they meet Benedict, and then she runs away before midnight so she can get home because her evil stepmother can't know that she left the house, and her evil stepmother somehow figures out that she has defied her somehow and then throws her out. And they meet years later as Sophie's been working as a servant, and Benedict saves her from almost being sexually assaulted, and then helps her get a job with his family. Since she's very adamant she wants to work and take care of herself. She has her values and her morals, and she is not going to just go sleep with anybody. And I really liked Sophie as a character. She was a lot of fun. She was very real. And since she had worked as a servant, she's a bastard child who been then raised as his ward. She's gotten to see both sides of the life. So that was a lot of fun as well. And I gave this 4 stars. I guess I could say I just gave all of these 4 stars. From differing degrees. There were some that I liked better and some I didn't like as much. But this one I enjoyed a lot as well. I then read Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is Colin and Penelope's story. And if you've watched the first season of Bridgerton, you already know the big reveal. In the books, it doesn't happen until this one. I've heard this described as a friends to lovers romance, but I disagree. Penelope has had a crush on Colin for years, and Colin just never really saw her. Penelope's friends with his sisters, and so they've developed a sort of friendship, and he then all of a sudden one day notices her. At the beginning of the series, Penelope is considered fat, and then through these next books, she's lost weight. And so I think I felt like it was very disingenuous that he only noticed her after she lost some weight. And then he realized that, oh, she's funny. I mean, you've talked to her you've known her for years and you've talked to her off and on. How did you not know that she was witty, intelligent? Seriously? It's like, what type of friend? So when they say it's a friends to lover, I don't really feel like that. I feel it's more like she had an unrequited crush on her best friend's older brother, and he thought of her as like, oh, you're just my sister's friend. That's more what I got. So I didn't get the friends to lovers that everyone says it was. And I also didn't like Colin's personality. Like in the first books, he's seen as very calming and charming and, has a good time. And in this book, he got really angry all the time. And I didn't even see a reason for him to get angry. I felt like also Colin robbed Penelope of some of her agency as the big reveal of the series. Like I said, if you watch the Bridgerton, you already know the reveal, but in the book series, you don't yet. So I felt like Penelope lost some of her agency after she got married because she didn't get to decide how to reveal her secret. Colin decided it was best to reveal it in this manner. And while sure it was a cool reveal, Penelope should have been in on that decision. It was her secret. And so while I like Colin in other books as a side character, I did not like him as the hero of his own story. This one still ended up getting a 4-star from me, but it was a much lower 4-star than the other books. So then next I read To Sir Phillip with Love, which is Eloise's story, and Eloise, I think, is my favorite character. Just her zaniness, how she gets her fingers in all the pies, and how she is very firm and this is what I want. I think it's nice to see somebody who wants to be intelligent and be seen for her intelligence, but she still had that desire to be married. I think sometimes in fiction, they try to make characters one way or the other. Either you want the romance or you want the accolades. And she was like, no, she wants both. So this is where I could see, like in the last book, the author is starting to wind stories more into each other, because Romancing Mr. Bridgerton overlaps with To Sir Phillip with Love, which overlaps also with When He Was Wicked, which is the next story. So in this one, I thought this was interesting because it didn't start off with Eloise, but Eloise has been corresponding with a widower, and through their corresponding, they both enjoyed it, and the widower, Sir Phillip, thinks he's been courting her through letters. And so then he proposes marriage because he knows that she is older, considered a spinster, and he thinks that, oh, she must, she'll be desperate to get married. Why not? And he invites her to his estate to visit him. He has failed to tell her that he has twins. Eloise, who is impulsive, decides to do it, but to not talk to anybody or to take a chaperone or to let him know that she's coming so he can arrange for a chaperone, which was the original plan. I love it when my husband's laughing because it's a lot of fun when I edit these and I just hear this. So he's having a great time. That's the laughing you hear. So then Eloise shows up on his doorstep and is starting to get to know him. And the twins, since their mother died, they've been more neglected from their father. And it explains why he's been more neglectful. It doesn't mean that he doesn't love them in this case. So he leaves his children to the ministrations of their nurse. And they're acting out because what they want is their father's attention. So here comes Eloise. The kids don't know that their dad has proposed, and so they see her as an interloper and want her gone, and they start a little merry war between the three of them. And it's just fun because Eloise, growing up with lots of siblings, is like, oh, sure, let's do this, spunk. I got this. And, she's willing to do this with the kids. She still hasn't decided if she wants to marry their dad, but, she's willing to go to battle with the kids. And on the flip side, she somehow left one of her letters, so her brothers show up and try to beat up Phillip because they think something inappropriate's going on. And in some of these books, there were sexual relations outside of marriage, and in some there weren't. Now this is a case where Eloise hasn't done anything because she doesn't know if she wants to marry this guy. But her brothers show up and say, well, you've been living under the same roof without a chaperone, so now you have to get married. So now she still hasn't decided whether she really wants to be with him. But he's like, oh yeah, we'll be fine. We have chemistry. And so then that's what they have to figure out. And then also, something that appealed to me is I'm a stepmother. And it can be difficult to try to figure out how to balance that. Like, what are the boundaries, especially like, what is your spouse going to allow you? How much is the man you married going to allow you to be a mother to his child or children? Kind of like their third act breakup, it wasn't really that. She went in, she saw something happening, was uncomfortable with it, went to him to say, hey, I think a change needs to be made, and he totally wrote her off, be like, yeah, do whatever. And she's like, no, I want to do this together, because she has the example of her happily married parents who work together, and then that causes a spat. And honestly, this, I think, was my favorite one. It still got 4 stars, but it was the highest rated out of all the books that I had read. The next I read, When He Was Wicked, which is Francesca's story, and Francesca had been married, or had gotten married shortly after Benedict, and then her husband died 2 years later. And she had not had a child, and so his cousin, who they were really good friends with, is now the new Earl, or the new Lord of the everything. But he had fallen in love with her at her wedding dinner, hadn't met her, and so he's been in love with his cousin's wife this whole time, and now his cousin's dead, and now she's like, oh, we're friends. She's trying to talk to him. She's grieving. He's grieving for the loss of his cousin because he had a great relationship with them. They were like brothers, and now he's supposed to take on the mantle of the lordship, and it was too much for him. He could not comfort the woman he was in love with, for the man who had died, and take on all the responsibilities of the man he had died. So he left. He went to India for some time and tried to write to her, but she was mad that he left. So when he finally comes back, that's also the time that she decides to quit mourning and look for another husband. Again, she has had no children. She's the dowager countess at this time, so she's been running everything while he's been gone. But she's like, it's time for him to do it, and I will get out of his way. Of course, he's still in love with her. After some prompting from her brother Colin, like I said, I really like Colin as the side character in other people's stories, because he's really good. I just didn't like him as the hero in his own. Colin kind of nudges him and be like, well, why aren't you going after my sister? You guys, you're already friends. You would make a good pair. And Michael decides, okay, I'll do that. And it freaks her out. And so she runs back to her Scottish home. And I don't think she thought about this very well, because it's not only her Scottish home, it's his Scottish home. So again, with some pushing from Colin, he goes after her. I think the story really shined on coming to terms with grief and moving on, even though you still miss somebody, and how it's not ruining the memory of someone, but they had to deal with those feelings themselves. And Michael still is feeling guilty because he's been in love with her for all this time, even when she was married to his cousin. And again, this got 4 stars. The next I read, It's in His Kiss, and this is Hyacinth's story. She's the youngest of the 8, so there's been quite some time since the last books, and she's friends with Lady Danbury, who is famous in these books as a very outspoken woman who is just going to say whatever she wants and get involved in people's business. And Lady Danbury has a favorite grandson that she has been trying to set up with Hyacinth. His name is Gareth. And Gareth's father had told him when he was younger that he was illegitimate, but because he was legally married to his mother, he's considered born in wedlock, so he's considered legitimate in the size of the law. And so his dad is slowly beggaring the family estate, so that basically when Gareth inherits it, he will be broke and poor and owe a lot of debt. Not a good relationship. Gareth adores his grandmother, Lady Danbury, though, and, you know, he's affable. He's a break. And he kind of gets challenged by his dad, like, oh, the Bridgertons are too good for you. And he's already intrigued by Hyacinth, so he decides to go for it. Now, this also has a fun mystery element. His older brother, George, who has died through his wife, has bequeathed him a journal from their grandmother, Isabella, who is Italian, and so the journal is written in Italian. And it happens that Hyacinth reads Italian, so she's helping him translate the journal. And they find out that Grandma Isabella had received some diamonds from her grandmother, but she never shared that information with her spouse because she didn't like him. There are now these missing diamonds as a mystery. And it was just fun because Hyacinth's like, well, let's go find them. You know, Hyacinth is very similar to Eloise, but she lacks some of the subtleness. I think Eloise, just coming up with Daphne, learned to be a little more subtle. And Hyacinth, as the baby, is just like, oh, why bother? So, of course, they're attracted. And there you go. I think this is one of the few stories that actually did follow the usual romance where you're together, or you're wooing, you're courting, crazy things are happening, and it does end like eventually they get married. And this book is where I could see that it felt like the author was reaching to try to have some, like, an original story, because the story just felt a little more flat to me. It felt more rote, routine. I mean, of course, I was binging a romance series as well. It went along with the sibling stories, but it didn't feel like it had quite the same magic. It felt like it felt more formulaic. There we go. That's what I'm trying to say. It felt more formulaic. And then we come to the last one, On the Way to the Wedding, which is Gregory's story. Gregory is the youngest son. He's number 7 of the children. And I guess he's kind of like wandering through life. And so his brother Antony's like, well, what are you trying to do? And he's like, love will just happen when it happens. And then he sees a woman and it's insta-love. And I was like, oh, shit. And of course, it's insta-love with someone who is very pretty and she is not interested. So he goes and meets her, Hermione, and her friend Lucy. And Lucy's like, oh, Hermione got another one. Yeah. And then Lucy's like, dude, she's in love with someone else. But hey, the person she's in love with is inappropriate, so sure, I will help you try to win Hermione. Gregory is not the only one who's in love with Hermione. Again, like the most beautiful woman ever. And things happen, and she ends up marrying someone else. And Gregory's like, what just happened? And then he's like, I'm not too upset about this. Okay, well, maybe that really wasn't love. Lucy, on the other hand, her and Hermione were supposed to go to London for their season, and they were going to do it together. They went to a boarding school together, and so that's why they're best friends. And Lucy's been like practically engaged, is how she says it, but she was going to get her season, and then her brother shows up at the party where Gregory and Hermione are, and says, oh, hey, our uncle wants to see you. And basically she's taken home to be like, oh, you're going to get married. So you're not going to have a season. You're going to get married in a couple months, and then we will introduce you to the ton as the married woman. So she's gone to London, and she doesn't get to get out of her house very often. Her future father-in-law is horrible. And everyone when they find out who her fiancé is, they're all like, oh, okay, he'll treat you gently. And she's just like, what? That's a weird way to describe it. He seems like he has a sense of humor. He seems like he likes to needle his dad. So he seems like he's a decent bloke, but he's not standing up for her with how his father is treating her. So she's like, well, I'm not sure. And then her and Gregory meet back up again. At first he's like he's just being nice. He's like, oh, okay, they've developed, I guess, a sort of acquaintance friendship. Finds out that she hasn't been allowed to go to any parties since they want to introduce her as the married woman. And he finagles it so that his sister, the Duchess, Daphne the Duchess, sends an invitation that can't be refused, basically, because of her high status. And then she gets to come to a ball. And he realizes there that he's in love with her. Like, remember, she's engaged to somebody else. And it goes from there. Again, romance novel, you know how things are going to end up, but how it happens, I don't want to ruin it because the craziness of it was a lot of fun. The insta-love part and the whole, or the realization of a second, actually I'm in love, that was confusing as hell. But the pursuing her and winning her was a lot of fun. So I gave that 4 stars. Then I got back on my space opera September and I read The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. And this was a lot of fun. I also have done a review on recently since this came out this year as well, and I will link that also in the cards. But for this book, it's following a group of individuals who get stranded at it's the 5-Hop Diner? No, 5-Hop One Stop. It's a gas station, that's what it is. So it's a gas station kind of convenience store with some other tourist sites attached, and these people have stopped to refuel and to wait and to get in line for the tunnel to continue their journey, and some satellite trouble happens and they have to stay until all the debris is cleared. And so this is very much a story of reflection. I think Becky Chambers did an excellent job. It was really fun that none of these characters were human. They were an all-alien cast, and it was fun to get to know more of the universe in that aspect. I feel like Becky Chambers is always really good about themes, and the themes of this one were very much, to my mind, community and multicultural. And I gave this 4 stars. Then I read Mashle, volume number 1, Magic and Muscles, which is kind of a ripoff, which is a ripoff of Harry Potter, except the main character has no magic, but is very, very strong and physically fit. It was completely zany. Yeah, that's really all I can explain. Like the kind of the synopsis of this child in a world where everyone has magic, and if you don't have magic, it's considered horrible. This child is found out and has to then go to magic school, and it's like a subterfuge thing. Yeah, I gave the story 3 stars. It was okay, just not quite my cup of tea. Then I finished The Heart of Valor by Tanya Huff. This is number 3 in the series I've been reading by her, following Torrin Kerr, and now Torrin is a major. Yeah, she's a major. And, or no, maybe she's still a gunner. No, she's still a gunnery sergeant. She's a gunnery sergeant. And she is presenting on information that was found in the first 2 books, and she really just wants to get back in the fight. She's used to combat. She doesn't want to deal with the political bullshit, and she's given the opportunity to go to Crucible, which Crucible is a training grounds for Marine recruits. She's given the opportunity to accompany a major who has recently come out of a healing tank and his doctor to see how he's performing along with a set of recruits. And it's a straightforward story, really. They're there for an objective. She's doing her job. I mean, Torrin doesn't change in this series. It's more things are happening around her, and it's fun to see how she's a very capable person, and she's working the problems and working the angles, and like she has the recruits are what she has, and the officer that is in charge of the recruits the head officer who's in charge of the recruits gets sick, and so then they're taking him with them, and she's trying to figure out how they're sick, but his species doesn't want to tell her. So the other recruits that are his species, they're like, no, just leave him alone, kind of thing. It goes back and forth. Is this a species problem, or is this a Marine problem? Because if it's a Marine problem, I'm going to fix it. This book very much deals with the aftermath of the second book, where they found an alien ship in space. And I really enjoyed it. Like, yeah. I really like Torrin Kerr as a character. I like that we have a competent gunnery sergeant who knows when she should take charge and when to follow procedure and when to say, we need an out-of-the-box thinking. I enjoy that. I'm really invested in this series and hope to get the next book soon. I'm having to interlibrary loan them because my library does not have them. They're an older series, but this is one that I'm going to want to own and reread someday. And I gave this 5 stars. I think this is actually my only 5 stars this month. The next, I finished Revelation Space by Alistair Reynolds. This was one of my space opera September buddy reads, and if I did not have the buddy reader, I would have DNF'd it again. So I actually tried picking this up at the beginning of the year, and just it didn't click. I bounced off of it. There was one character that I just did not like, but he seemed to be like the focal point of everything, and I'm like, I don't care. I just don't care about him. The characters I liked was Anna Corey and Ilya Volyova. I thought they were very interesting throughout the whole book. I enjoyed them. And Daniel Sylvestre, I couldn't care less. All the plot twists that involved him, I'm just like, really? That's probably not the best thing to say, but yeah. It was boring really until like the 40% mark, and then things started to pick up. I don't know, we had some characters in this book that I'm still trying to figure out why they were there. Honestly, I'm just like, what was the purpose or the point to this character being in this story? And I don't know. So I don't know if I will continue with this series. It's possible, because from the synopsis that I read for the second book, it is not a continuation of the characters. It seems like there's a new character group. They're just going to be dealing with the aftermath of what has happened in this book. The idea of this, I think, is solid. Just the execution fell flat for me, and I ended up giving this 3 stars. Next, I read Velocity Weapon by Megan E. O'Keefe. She's someone who I enjoy her writing. I'm in the middle of her Scorched Earth series, which is a fantasy series, so if you really like Velocity Weapon, go pick up her Scorched Earth series. I'm trying to remember what the first one is. By reading this book, I see that she has different writing styles. She is an author with craft, because this was not written in the same style as her fantasy series, and that threw me at first. But then afterwards, once I got into it, it's just pure space opera fun. Sanda was so much fun. Byron, I'm not sure how her brother's name is pronounced. He was an interesting character, and Barrow, the AI spaceship. So I guess going back to the synopsis of it, there's a battle. Sanda gets put into an evac pod. At this time, Baron is graduating from his studies as they find out about the battle, and then he wants his sister found. And so he's using his newfound power to get people to go search for the evac pods, because she wasn't the only one who evac'd. Sanda wakes up in an AI spaceship. Nobody else is around, and the light of Barrow, who goes by Barrow, so we'll just call him Barrow. He tells her that it's been hundreds of years in the future, that they found her evac pod, that they found her evac pod, and she was still alive. He brought her into the ship and woke her up because he wants to leave this solar system, but really can't do that without someone who can repair things. And things go from there. This is a great story where like the action and the information builds on one another. We do have two interlude perspectives. One is Alexandra, who has found the original gate technology, which I'm sure is going to come more into play, but so she's past, very, very, very past, back from she lived on Earth. And then the other interlude perspective we have is from Jules, who is in a different solar system, and she's a criminal. She's a criminal who has just done a heist. And at first I was like, I really am curious how these storylines are going to blend. And O'Keefe did a great job getting us to the point at the end where you can start to predict, like, oh, here's how things are going. And I really enjoyed it. And I am just waiting. For some reason, my library didn't already own the series. I was the one who had to ask for Velocity Weapon. I'm the one who to ask for them to buy Chaos Vector. So I'm waiting for that to come in so I can finish the series, because I am invested. And I gave this a 4 stars. While I really enjoyed the story, the execution was not perfect. But it was a fun romp, which is what I love in my space opera. Then, after reading a lot of big books, I picked up another of my space opera reads, but didn't finish it until October, so that'll be my October wrap-up. But I needed some balance, some shorter books. So I picked up Ghost Spider Volume 1, Dog Days Are Over. This is one of the Hugo finalists, and this is about Gwen Stacy as Ghost Spider. And I didn't like it. The artwork was good. The artwork was really good. But the story was chaotic and all over the place. I actually DNF'd it halfway through. And then I was like, no, this book, I'm like, this is so short. This is stupid to DNF it. So I picked it back up and just skimmed the rest of it. And amazingly, this book managed to get 3 stars, even though I did not like it. I don't know. I like Shauna Maguire sometimes. I don't think I like her graphic novel writing. So then next I read 3 volumes of a manga series called Komi Can't Communicate. And this is by Tomohiro Oro. And this is so cute. This is about a young woman named Shoko Komi. And she has an anxiety where it makes it difficult for her to talk to anybody. And so she doesn't have any friends. And she, first day of school, another student who is also socially awkward starts noticing that, well, everyone's like, oh, she's so gorgeous, she's a goddess, we're not worthy to talk to her, and they're more class worshipping her. He's like, something's different. And he figures it out, and they start a writing conversation, and they become friends. And he finds out that her goal is she wants to make 100 friends. And so he starts helping her connect to their classmates. And it's just a very, very cute series. And I can already kind of see that a romance is going to happen as well. That Komi is falling in love with Tadano, and like I think will probably reciprocate, just because they've had that good basis of friendship. I can totally see it happening, and I'm totally in for that. So I really enjoyed all 4 of those, I really enjoyed all 3 of those books, and I am continuing currently with the series. I have given the series so far, or I gave all 3 of those mangas 4 stars. And then I ended my month with the Bridgertons Happily Ever After. This is a book that has the second prologue, so further down the line with the families, each of the characters gets a story, and then you get a story about Violet, the mother. And I really adored the story about Violet. I liked a lot of the second prologues for the most part. There were, like, the one I didn't like was Hyacinth, where her daughter Isabella actually found the jewels but didn't tell anyone. Once she finds out that's what her mother is always looking for, she puts them back in the hiding spot. That one didn't sit well with me, but the majority of them I liked. It was fun kind of catching up. I do like that. And I'm curious, because I know that Julia Quinn has a family tree on her website, and that some of Daphne's daughters are married with children. If those might be future books. I know that there's a spin-off series that has stories for Edmund's 2 sisters. I really enjoy Julia Quinn's writing, and I am interested to read more. So that finishes my September wrap-up. 18 books. I feel like I have been talking for an hour, and I can totally understand why those who read way more than me have really long wrap-ups. I think my favorite this time was The Heart of Valor by Tanya Huff. Like I said, it was the only one I gave 5 stars to, but I had an excellent reading month. Like, it was just perfect. So what was your favorite book of September? Thank you, and have a great day.